I gotta stop giggling at the beginning. Okay, I'm sorry. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Conversations with Taz. And tonight we are going to be talking about, you know what? I know what the title says, but let's just say we're going to talk about all things within the trans community that my lovely panel is comfortable with saying. And I would like to take this time to allow them to introduce themselves to you. So, Chris, would you like to start?
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm 41. I live in Michigan. I'm a trans man and I'm a parent of 5 and a grandparent of 2.
Wow.
Wow. Wasn't expecting that, but that's cool.
Adeva, you are up next.
So my name is Adeva. I am from New York. I am a trans female. I've transitioned for about 15 years. And what else? I think, right? I don't know what else to say.
Well, Adeva is fierce.
Oh, thank you.
And look, and hold on. Real quick side note. Can you show the people your hair, that luscious, luscious hair of yours?
I was just looking at that. That looks like it has magical powers.
It's a wig. It's not even my hair.
You couldn't even just...
If you own it, it is yours.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yep.
I paid for it, so it's mine.
Yeah. Got a receipt somewhere, it's yours.
And
Absolutely.
Talon. Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Hey guys, I'm Talon. Trans man here. I'm technically a Texan, just moved to New York City, like I think a month ago. Pretty early in my transition. I'm not even a year on T yet, but it's kind of me in a nutshell. Same?
Same. 9 months.
Oh, I just passed 9 months like
I
days ago. So
I think
Mine
I'm
was
like
August 13th.
6 years.
My first shot was August 13th.
when was
I'm like, yeah.
No, we're exactly a month apart, me and you.
I love it.
Like I was like, is that right? I was like, what day is it? I forget.
Yeah, I started hormones. I had done a breast augmentation because I was trying to avoid actually taking hormones. My mom has had breast cancer multiple times, so as many of you know, estrogen can trigger breast cancer.
Yes.
So I was like a little like worried about taking hormones, but then I found out in order to do gender reassignment surgery, you have to be on them because otherwise you're not producing a natural sex hormone, which could lead to brittle bone disease. So I started hormones like a year after I got my boobs done, which was 7 years ago. So it's about like 6 years. I think it was like December 17th or something like that.
Wow. Congrats.
So thank you. It was a very long time.
Can we start there, if you all don't mind? And you all could explain to people the hormones that you take and how it is helpful in your transition, because I think a lot of people get very confused about that and kind of think that hormones kind of gives you like superpowers, so to speak. I know that not to be true, but in your own words, if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with that, kind of explaining your journey.
I think it's good too because you have both trans men and trans women because hormones affect us differently also. Like what they go through with hormones is way different than what I go through. So I think it's good that you're going to get both sides of the spectrum. Who wants to go first?
You go ahead. You already started. Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am on estradiol, which is the estrogen. I'm on 4 milligrams of it a day. I take it by oral. So I take it every morning. And then I'm also on spirulactone, which is an androgen blocker or a testosterone blocker. And I believe that's like 200 milligrams. And I take 2 of those. So it's 2 of the estradiol, 2 of the spirulactone every day. I've been on them for about 7 years. I will say that like before I started hormones, I felt like I had a lot of aggression and a lot of rage. And I feel like the estrogen has like mellowed me down. Don't get me wrong, I'm still hot-headed. Like, hi, I'm from New York. Like, we're crazy. But it definitely has calmed me down to the point that like I feel much more mentally, like emotionally stable, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm not as like conflicting.
I can understand that. Although we women are always told that we're the more emotional sex.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm emotional, but like, I just think that it's more like in the aggression part that's like mellowed down, if that makes sense. And then, so when I started hormones, as I mentioned, there was the concern of estrogen, breast cancer. So they started me on a very low dosage. I was getting like 0.7 milligrams a week.
Oh, wow.
And when I went for my first checkup after 3 months, my doctor said to me, you know, she's like, you're only putting one patch on. So it was like a transdermal patch that would like get stuck to my thigh, and I would put like Tegaderm over it for a week at a time, that type of thing. And I was like, yeah, why? And she goes to me, your estrogen count shouldn't be higher than 60. And I was like, well, what is it? And she goes, 140.
Oh.
So I said to her, is that bad? And she goes, no, that actually shows that your body was craving the estrogen and is actually capable of producing it on its own. That you're producing more than double of what you should have on that dosage.
Wow.
And she had told me when I started that dosage, don't expect like crazy like changes and that type of thing. My boobs went up 3 cup sizes. I was just like, okay. I was like, wait a minute here. Because with the breast implants, I was a D cup, and now I'm currently an F cup. And I was just like, all right, I'm good. Please no more. Like, I wasn't expecting that much, but it did make a lot of changes. I felt like it softened the voice. It definitely softened my skin. I noticed the fat redistribution in my body. So like my hips got curvier. My waist had gotten already smaller than it was. So, but for me, I've had a really good experience on hormones.
Chris, you got those over 40 hormones we were talking about.
I know. The hot flashes are doubled over here.
Because I was telling Chris, I
Oh,
was like,
those are the worst.
all of a sudden I felt like I went into like I finally went through puberty. It was like everything fell into place.
Yeah.
That's
And
what happens.
yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, fellas, which one of you wants to go next? Talon, Chris.
I'll just start real quick. I was very lucky to be able to take my first dose of testosterone on my actual birthday, so I kind of felt like it was a twofer.
That's
I got the
awesome.
prescription the day before, and so I was really excited. For me, it helped a lot with my mental state. I don't know how to explain it, except there was something missing, and it kind of helped fill that in. And I don't know if that was so much kind of like something where it's the aggression. Like she mentioned how her aggression had gone down. I don't necessarily feel like aggression has gone up, but I feel more blunt. I feel more just to the point. And I don't know if that's part of the tea, just part of the change and everything that I'm going through. But, you know, just getting the great things. Facial hair started really easily for me around the 3rd month. I started noticing that. I've had some really good changes with my voice. My doctor's surprised at how low it's gotten versus where I started from. Bodily changes, you know, all trans men get so excited for the facial hair, but it is the ass hair that comes first. And yep, it is all about the butt hair when you want it to be about the facial hair, and eventually that starts to even out. But I have had nothing but positive changes so far, bodily, mentally, and I'm just coming up on a year in, so I am so excited to see what that next year even brings.
That's awesome.
That's great. You might have to come back and have like an anniversary party.
Let's do it. I'm down.
Yes. Okay, Talon. Dun, 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 dun.
So I had very similar, you know, I told when you said that, like, it just felt like that missing part was suddenly there. That's the best way that I could explain it as well. Like, it was just suddenly, it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense now.
Yes.
So yes, like you said it perfectly. I've got a little bit of facial hair coming in. It's a little bit, but it's coming in there.
Yep.
My partner gets to hear all about like me coming up to her being like, hey, I got a new patch over here. Can you feel it? And she's just like, yes, baby, very cute. I'm like, okay, thanks, bye. But yes, so like definitely I felt more blunt as well. Like you said that really well. Like it's something like, I don't know if I just quit giving a shit, but I quit giving a shit, and I just felt more blunt overall. And like some people like very, you know, say that trans guys get aggressive. And I didn't really feel any of that. You know, I was definitely more blunt, but yeah, everything just kind of suddenly made sense and it felt better. and I had a couple hiccups there in the beginning getting my dosage right. But then once we got over that hurdle, then
I had that too.
Yeah. Yeah, so many of us are just like, okay, there we go. That's the right dosage. But yeah,
I feel like dosages take sometimes it could take like a while for like things to balance, and it could take a while to like get your actual dosage right.
Yeah.
I almost ended up in a hospital because I was on too much estrogen.
Oh my. Well, I'm glad they
Yeah,
got
I have to be monitored for my dose because I have naturally high hemoglobin and hematocrit. So adding testosterone onto that increases my risk of thickening my blood and therefore strokes and blood clots. So we're very, very intentional with my dosage. And I'm monitored very well, but that is something I have to watch for sure.
Yeah.
See, for me, I felt like, so I've gotten chronic migraines since I'm like 13. So I started on the 0.7, I went to 2, I then went to 4, and then I went to 6. And when I was on 6, about like 2 months after being on 6, I ended up in the hospital because I had a migraine for 2 weeks straight. It literally felt like my head was exploding. And when I spoke to my doctor, they said, level yourself back down to 4 milligrams. And that seemed to be what worked right for my body. So that's why like I felt like I needed to speak up on that like every trans person is different, because I've had so many, I don't know about you guys, but I've had so many trans people like ask me like, oh, like what's your dosage, or what do I tell my doctor to put me on? And it's like, it has to be to your body chemistry.
Yeah.
You know, like it's customized to you.
Yeah, we do have one great question. I love my comment section. One, let me I think you all missed it. We have one viewer that said, thank you all for being on tonight. I love y'all. There's no better way to learn but to hear from the people actually going through it. So thank you. And we have KW who wants to know, do they tell you what signs to watch out for?
Yes.
Yeah, I was sent home with a full sheet of, male. I don't know if it said, it wasn't about hormone replacement therapy as like adding onto a male. It was very specific to the trans male experience and what you may experience going on this medication.
Yeah, I go through Plume Healthcare, so it's all online. It's a great service. But yeah, there's a whole thing on there that you had to click on. You had to read completely through it before you could virtually sign it and be like, yes, I've read all of these warnings, things that you should look for, things that you should immediately contact us if they start happening. So yeah.
Yeah, my doctor gave me a packet as well where it explained like all the risks. And actually something else that she wanted me to do was get genetic testing beforehand to make sure I was negative for BRCA1 and 2, which is the gene for breast cancer.
Okay.
So that's something that they wanted to, like the way like you said you have to be monitored, it's the same thing for me. Like I was going every 3 months getting blood work, making sure it's not affecting you in a negative way. There's a lot more to it than people think. People think you just go on hormones and that's just it. You don't ever have to see your doctor again, but they don't realize that every few months you have to go see and get regulated.
Yeah, and I don't think either of us had mentioned it, and I don't know if yours is the same, but I know Adeva was saying how she takes pills daily. My testosterone injection is just once a week.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So there's I feel like there's multiple ways. Like you could do injections, you could do a pill form, or you could do like a patch form. They even have cream forms as well. But they say that usually oral or injections are like the most potent. Like you'll get the most benefits with those.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly like, I'm not scared of needles. I just don't have the patience to stick myself with a needle every week. So I was like, I'd rather just take a pill and call it a day. So that's just what works better for me. But some people, it works better taking like, injections.
Yeah.
I've heard all of you all say that after starting your hormone therapy, there was like a relief. Everything just fell into place. Do you think it was more the hormones or more that you were finally able to live as your true self?
Both.
Yeah.
I would say both.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, I know that it can be very trying and very difficult to live in the skin that you're in, especially within the United States. What can we, cisgendered individuals, do to be a better help to you?
Who wants to go first?
I'll take it off first since I keep going last. There we go. We'll mix things up this time. I think ultimately, sometimes, and Chris, I know I see you all the time making videos, and I know that for me, it gets exhausting. It gets exhausting being in comment section. It gets exhausting, constantly, having to make a video to respond to something because somebody's doing something transphobic, or there's some legislation, and you're just like, I'm fucking tired. I'm fucking tired. And so, and I know that you do this, Taz, because I've called you numerous times. but being there so that when we need to sit down and go, okay, I need just 5 minutes, that you guys can be like, okay, we'll take this. We've got this. Go take a breather. Go have a drink. Go get some water. I think that that's really important, and that's kind of what I personally need is when I have to take a step back, when it starts getting to my mental health, when it starts becoming too much. I need other people to step up and say, okay, I got this. You go take a breather.
Yeah, that's usually me for Talon.
Yeah, pretty much.
I agree with that.
Where are they? How can I get them? Go ahead, Adeva.
Sorry. Also, I think a way that a cisgender person can help too is being respectful that there are certain questions you shouldn't ask. It's one thing if you're like a very close friend of mine where like you've watched me go through the whole transition and you have a question, but when a random person is asking what's between your legs or what surgeries have you had done, it's like you don't go around doing that to a cis person, so don't do that to a trans person either. I get there's that curiosity there. Of course, everyone wants to know because it wasn't something that was very talked about up until the past maybe 5 or 10 years, if you will. I would say like when I Am Jazz first started coming about, I think that was like 10 years ago. That was like when it really started becoming more mainstream. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people ask me like, oh, like, have you had the surgery? Or, oh, like, what's between your legs? And it's like, hi, like my privates are private, just like yours are. So I think cisgender people need to learn that sometimes there's certain boundaries that they should not cross, and to ask things respectfully. Sometimes being so blunt about it can come off very disrespectful. It's like I would rather someone say like, hey, like if you're okay with sharing other than, like just besides them going like, oh, so what's between your legs? Like, why do you feel that you're entitled to demand an answer from us? I would rather them say like, are you okay with sharing? Like that type of thing. Like I had a friend who I met off of TikTok, and she's bisexual and very, very nice. My friend Kayla Bonds. I don't know if she's watching, but I remember she had some questions, and she felt like she was overstepping boundaries at first and being disrespectful. And I said to her, no. I said, because the way that you're asking is very respectful. I was like, I would tell you if you were being disrespectful, like you're crossing the boundary.
And I agree, especially with the being able to kind of tap out in a tag team situation. It does get exhausting, and having our allies there who we can tap out with is it's honestly priceless for me. If I'm able to tap out and somebody else is able to speak up and speak clearly and correctly and cleanly, and it means a lot. And I think one of the things that's been getting me recently, scrolling through TikTok and all the social media, is, and I keep meaning to make a video about in-groups because so many people seem to not understand an in-group phenomenon. So if you are not a trans individual and living in a trans experience, whatever that is for you, you can't make jokes. You can't use certain words. You can't. And I think if I hear, but I have a trans friend one more time, I might just physically retch.
It's kind of like dark humor. It's
yes.
Like if you're not a part of that group, like the same way, like if you're not Black, don't make a Black joke. If you're not Jewish, don't make a Jewish joke. Same thing would be, I agree with you on that.
Yes, and I've just been seeing a lot of it, and that's getting tiring because if you go through the comment section, it's the few trans people who are comfortable speaking up, and then it's just a million cis voices just saying, but it's just a joke. And that boils our experience down to a joke, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
I do have another question. This question is more personal to me. And this is personal to me for the people on this panel. Talon, I think I already know how you're going to answer this, but I still want you to answer it as well. Because I never want to come across as if I'm speaking over any of you or speaking for you. That was a couple weeks ago. I know someone had said something that hurt Chris, and Chris had made a video, and I don't know if you saw my stitch, basically telling them to leave you alone and come at me. And Talon, we already know what happened tonight. And David, I don't know if you've seen any of those, and I don't
think I mean, I might have, but I don't think I'm really familiar with the situation. So if you could fill me in on that.
But I also called out a quite large content creator, 4 times, Talon?
Yeah.
The
Pride.
Yeah. But I'm asking, is my method correct or should I alter it? Because I
no,
you to feel
I think you're fine.
Over you or speaking for you or taking your voice away.
Not at all. At least not for me. I think from the videos that I've seen of you, I think you're very well spoken, and I think you've addressed the situation pretty respectfully. I'll be honest, like, I never was really involved in the situation. I had seen kind of like both sides, if that makes sense. And ironically, how I actually kind of got involved was there was a person named Conservative Goth, who attacked me. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
We all cringe at once.
Yeah. So Taj, you might have seen my videos on that, but she attacked me because I had made a video that was using the audio that was going after Matt Gaetz, if you're familiar with that situation. And she just was coming at me. She was inciting her followers after me. And ironically, Lizzie was the first person that I had really met, and I didn't know that you were her cousin. And she made a video telling people, go report her page, go to my page and spread some love and that type of thing. And then when I started seeing all these videos coming out with everyone in that whole situation, I was just like, I don't see what people are talking about with Lizzie, because Lizzie didn't know me from a hole in a wall, but she just stuck her neck out for me and really defended me when no one else did. And I know, like, you've also addressed situations about like what happened to me as well for multiple people. So I think you're very well spoken on it. I don't think you've overstepped at all.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. And I always like to ask people, and I like to ask it publicly so people know that it's being asked, because a big issue right now on all social media platforms is people going, oh, I handled my friend in private. But that person isn't publicly apologizing for public missteps that they have made.
That's a weak sauce. That's the weak sauce way to go about it.
Creator that gave a fake apology, and I addressed her and said, I know I'm not a part of the community, but this is not a real apology, and you owe them a real apology. I was able to sit her down with another panel of people from the community, and we're still monitoring that situation. But let's get into this legislation. There's so much. Please excuse me for not knowing the legislation in everybody's neck of the woods. I'm not gonna lie. After I got to like Bill 97, I stopped. I had a breakdown. I have no idea how you all feel about so much legislation. But can we talk about what you're facing in your particular neck of the woods?
Here in Michigan, personally, this last year, the news has been triggering because it was always numbers, it was always deaths, it was always something. But here in Michigan, I haven't personally experienced anything, nothing major, few looks and things like that. But our governor, we've got Gretchen Whitmer, Big Gretch, and she fights. And in Michigan right now, there's not great legislation when it comes to work protection and housing protections and things like that. But she pushes and she is pushing. So Michigan is definitely not the worst place you can be. We have a lot of conservatives, but the legislation is not actively working against us like it is in a lot of other states. It's pretty passive, passively against us, versus some other states for sure.
I feel like it's the same for New York. I agree with you with the news. I got to a point where I can't watch the news anymore because it gets too overwhelming. It's too much. But I remember, I think it was probably 6 to 8 months ago, where in New York they were trying to pass a law that you would be able to legally discriminate against an LGBT person by claiming religious freedom. And there was also a thing about with healthcare that they could deny you healthcare as a trans person. So I was really afraid that I would lose my healthcare, and what would I do for hormones? What would I do for therapy and that type of thing? And just the fact that I have idiopathic anaphylaxis, which is a medical condition where a lot of my food allergies can shut my throat, and I could basically stop breathing and die. And when I heard that Trump was trying to basically pass that law, I was like, so I could be going into anaphylactic shock and need medical care, and they could decide to say, oh, because she's trans, I can't help her. And I was just like, the fact that we're getting to that, the fact that that's even a question, that's even a thought of being able to be passed in 2021 and 2020, it was mind-boggling to me. I remember I had a whole breakdown about it because I was just like, what do I do? And, people make New York out to be so progressive and open-minded, but it's really not. I've experienced a lot of transphobia here. I've experienced it with discrimination, housing, jobs. I've experienced it in almost every neck of the woods that you could experience. So I feel like New York is they try to paint it as progressive, but it's really not. There was a lot of things going on here that I felt were just very, they shouldn't have been happening this far in time, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Talon?
So for me, Taz knows this, and I think I might have mentioned it, but I just moved from Texas. Me and my partner have a running joke that she saved me. She plucked me from Texas and saved me. So I do have, for me, I feel much safer here in New York. I do compared to Texas, goodness. But I do still have friends in Texas and in more conservative states. And so for me, the impact of all this legislation isn't necessarily hitting me, but it's me getting texts on my phone of, I've adopted a trans little brother. He's 20. And I get texts from him going I'm worried. I don't know what's going to happen. And so for me, it's more from a caring standpoint from those people that are just I don't know what's going to happen. I live in a conservative state. I might be fucked. I might be fucked.
I do know that in Florida, at least I know for a fact in West Palm, Florida, it has been passed that they can check genitalia.
Yeah, I saw that too. Or it could be a felony for parents. There's a lot of southern states that pass a law where it could be a felony that if a parent tries to help their child with anything gender affirming, whether it's hormones, therapy, etc., that they would go to prison. And I remember I had a conversation, more like a creative discussion, if you will, with a conservative that was coming after me from the whole conservative goth situation, where she's like, oh, do you respect my opinion that gender affirming surgery shouldn't be done until they're at least 18? I was like, you do realize you have to be at least 18. Why are they going to do, for example, facial feminization surgery where they shave down the whole face for your skeleton to continue growing? It's the same thing with a nose job. You know what I mean? You have to be a certain age because they want you fully grown. What's the purpose of doing all of that if you continue to do that? Or the same thing with the sports teams. I don't think a lot of people realize that when you're on hormones, for example, like as long as I have, I made a video. I think you might have seen it, Taz, where like I explained like moving into my first apartment like 6 years ago before I started hormones, or like right when I first started them, was nothing for me. But moving now into my current apartment almost 3 years ago, it took me so much more effort. They don't realize that when you're on hormones for so long, if you're on estrogen, for example, you lose that muscle mass. You don't have that muscle mass.
I think people only think of the things they can experience. They can experience the deepening of our voice. They can experience our facial hair, but they don't look into the deeper science of it. How on testosterone, I can build muscle mass a lot more easily now. If I were to get thrown into a women's league, I would have a physical advantage at that point.
Right.
They're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're not thinking of those things.
No. And they're coming at it from a place of just random little tidbits that they've heard from some other person.
And fear.
Yeah.
It's a major thing with fear. Like I watched, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of TYT on YouTube.
Yeah.
They did a study on conservatives where they realized that they're more dogmatic with the way that they think. They're very black and white. There's no grayscale spectrum to their thought process. So I think a lot of times these come out of what they're doing comes out of fear, but it also comes out of miseducation.
Oh, definitely. Because even here in Kentucky, one of my favorite cousins, and I'm so upset that she had to work tonight. Actually, at this point, I'm beginning to think that my family is the main supplier to the Alphabet Mafia. But I digress. She's a trans woman. Now, I have a habit of not putting trans in front of it and just introducing people like, oh, this is my friend, blah, blah, blah. Or I want you to meet this woman. I hope that is not disrespectful. That's just how I see people.
I don't think it is.
But it's so funny. I have a neighbor, the ultimate Karen. Actually, talking about that ultimate Karen is what gave me my viral video. She thinks she's so anti-trans community, but she loves my cousin. If my cousin were to get off work early and pull up at my house, she would stop this woman and talk to her for hours. And I just sit in the window cracking up. Like, woman, if you only knew.
It's like, I was literally just about to say that. I feel like I've had that same experience too. Like I'm a hairstylist, and I remember there was this father that came in with his daughter, and this father was giving me some dirty ass looks, and I was just like, oh no. And then when I finished his daughter's hair, her hair was popping, and he's like, oh my God, you did such a good job. And his whole mood toward me changed, and it's just like, oh, so because I did something good for you, now you're gonna be more like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of people are like that.
We have to prove it.
Right.
Yeah. See, that's
like you have to prove you're human, you're a decent human. And it's
we can
like,
function too.
Yeah, but see, that's the really, really weird part for me. Because I've heard people go, well, how do you know they're really a woman? How do I know
How do you know you're a woman? See, like when someone goes like that to me, I go, why is it that if you're straight and cis, it's okay to know? But if you're trans, gay, bi, anything like that, oh, they're too young. Or, oh, I don't want them seeing that on TV because that's going to make them like that. Listen, I'm a white passing mixed person and I'm trans. I didn't grow up with anyone like me on TV. I'm still who I am. The straight cisgender narrative didn't change who I was. It was apparent that I was female since I was probably a year and a half old. That's how obvious it was. Like,
so people say what they don't want their kids to see, and I'm like, but you let them watch you get your ass beat in the house. You let them do drugs. You let them watch you get passed out drunk. You let them watch you get sexually assaulted or film porn. Because I'm like, for me, representation was, first of all, I am an immigrant Caribbean bisexual Black woman married to a trans man. Where you gonna find that?
You just a whole mouthful.
I am, you know what? I am the New Yorker from the deli, okay? I am the pastrami with you just throw everything on it. You're the
smorgasbord of food.
I've heard the term garbage plate. Do you have that? Do you have that where you're at in New York, the garbage plates?
We have it here in Kentucky.
Oh, do you? I love it.
It's like it's basically it's like when you go to a wedding and you get that tiny ass plate, but you try to fit every and anything that you can on it. That's literally what it is.
Put that one last thing on the very top. You're like, it'll balance, right?
Yeah, it's like it'll fit, and then you have to get that other plate just to fit that one extra thing on it, and you're just like,
and here we go.
See, I feel that way with my ethnic background because people always say to me, "You have to pick one," and I'm like, "No, I don't."
No, you don't.
Like, I don't understand. I'm very aware that like I'm white passing, but Taj, you see my videos, you see my natural hair. I have an afro. Like, I literally have kinky curly hair.
Well, just like people get confused with my cousin and I.
Right.
We both
or like
Afro-Latina. They think
right.
that every Afro-Latina is supposed to look the same.
No, and that's the thing. They don't get it that when you're mixed or anything like us, that we come in all shades of color. So it's like literally like I have 3C textured hair, but then, you know, I look quote unquote white. And so people, you know, like I love when like white people like to like try to pass their racism or like they try to get the pass, like they think like I'm going to agree with them. And it's like, surprise, like, hi, I'm mixed. Like, no, don't support that. Like, that's a problem. And I feel like they do the same thing with trans. Like, I've had so many people, like so many trans folks say to me, like, oh, they're like, you need to pick your gender. Or, like, you need to figure out your gender. I was like, I did. That was the whole point of transitioning. Because I knew who I was. Like, thank you.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because on a previous episode, we were talking about microaggressions, etc., within the Alphabet Mafia. And one person that was commenting, they were commenting out of ignorance, not out of spite. Can you all please explain? It's not a choice, it's your life.
If it's a choice, this is what I do. When someone tells me that it's a choice that you're choosing to be trans, I say, choose it right now. And when they say, no, I can't, that's not me, I go, okay then. So if it's not a choice for you, why is it a choice for me? And usually that starts to trigger their thought process, like, wait a minute. And they don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like they kind of get like shell shocked and they're like, what? They're like, but I thought it was a choice. And I'm like, if it's a choice, choose. How do you know you're not gay or you're not trans or you're not bi if you've never experienced it yourself? And they say that technically everybody is bisexual on a spectrum. It's whether or not like you're open enough to explore it. So like, I don't know. I think people are kind of stupid on that part, to be honest. Forgive my words, but you know, I don't really hold back. I just kind of say what I have to say. Like, but what are your guys' takes on it?
Well, I think that if it had been a choice, I've come out like 3 times now. But I think if it had been a choice, I would have been just fine being a butch lesbian. Like I would have been great. Like that's what I was for over a decade, and I was like still like something's not quite right. Like I'm digging short hair, like I'm digging the outfits, but I'm like something's not there yet. And if it was a choice, then I would have been like, okay, this is me. I'm happy. Go on about my day, you know. But I could never quite get too happy, and everybody would talk about like different things, and I'd be like, am I the only one feeling like this? Like, is this like? And I kept it in for like a decade until I was finally like, okay, I have to quit denying myself this. This is who I am, you know. And if it had been a choice, like I would have chosen to be happy then, 10 years ago.
I feel like also to like kind of add on to what you said is that when they think, you know, when they make it out to be a choice, I'm just like, why would I choose all of this ignorance if I really had a choice in it? Why would I choose to be, you know, I've been assaulted 3 times. When I was 15 years old, I actually had 2 guys. I was walking with a group of my friends through the shopping center where I lived in Queens at the time. And these guys like stopped to ask us for cigarettes. And I guess like, you know, obviously I was like just starting to transition. So they clocked me or whatever. And they actually broke a beer bottle and held it to my throat and said, if you walk down the street, we'll slice your throat. And now like, I'm originally from the Bronx. Like I'm a fighter. I'm not afraid of nobody, like that type of thing. But it's just the point that like they did that and then assaulted me. Why would I choose that if I had a choice?
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go with it. Why would anybody choose to experience this? One, my transition isn't fun. I don't like giving myself a shot every week. I don't like the body acne it gives me. Again, let's revisit the ass hair. I mean, there's just some things. I made it till I was 40 years old before I finally admitted it. If it was a choice, I just would have gone the next 30 or 40 and not even bothered with it because this is a lot. But like I tell everybody, the only choice I made was to finally be myself. And I like to ask people, when did you know you were straight? When did you know you were, the same gender you are? You just always knew. It is not a choice. It is inherent. The only choice you make is whether or not to recognize it. And I couldn't go any longer without recognizing it.
I agree with you.
What I think is hypocritical with cisgendered individuals is that as a cisgendered woman and having various conversations with cisgendered people, I'd say about roughly 75 to 80% of them have questioned if they were in the right body. So for me, it's weird to hear people question you on to do that. But as you began to go through your process before you even started hormones and you started to accept it within yourselves, what was your support like? Did you have a support team?
So
My
I can say that I did. I have a great group of friends who I met from my last job. And funnily enough, we got really drunk in a hot tub. And that's when I came out to them. It worked, okay?
I mean, listen, that's the way to do it. Why not?
Heck yeah.
They say that people say their true feelings when they're drunk. So I mean,
Yeah.
Babies and kids tell no lies.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so they started out as my original support team, where we've got a group chat going all the time. And anytime that I would come in there and be like, guys, they'd be like, okay, what's up? What's happening? They'd immediately be there. And then from there, my dad and my stepmom, and I have a little sister. They've been immensely supportive. I have some rough spots in family, but then going on to my TikTok family that I've created. Yes, including you, Tess. I've had
your favorite, right?
I am not saying that.
You're gonna say it.
Say it, say it, say
No,
it, say it.
Part of my TikTok family, there is this argument over who's my favorite, and we're just not going there.
This has been like an 8-month argument.
Because I'm stubborn. But yes.
Favorite, it's okay. That's an admission. Y'all saw that, right? That is an admission.
The others might be watching.
Oh, see, Denise.
They'll build a bridge and get over it.
Favorite. See, Denise said I'm everybody's favorite. It is written. It is true.
Okay. But yeah, so my TikTok family, they've ultimately been there. I know that with Taz and I are part of a group. That there would be times that I would just be having a bad day, and I'd just be able to be like, "Hey guys, so this sucks," and they would just immediately be like, "Okay, what's going on? What's happening? Do you need a video call? Where we need to be?" So yeah, I'd say that I was lucky, and I got a support team and found it.
Chris?
Everyone that I care about has been 100% supportive. I have family who doesn't care. I have family who I don't care, things like that. But everyone in my life who means something to me has been 100% supportive and accepting. So I have been very lucky in that regard.
Dava?
My story is not as positive. So when I came out as trans, I lost a lot of friends. I was honestly bullied from the time I was probably about 5 years old. So I was always bullied really bad. And when I was 14, basically in middle school, I was bullied so bad to the point that I attempted to commit suicide 3 times. And then I reached a point where I was just like, I need to be myself or just end it. So I chose to be myself. And when I came out as myself, I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of people, which honestly, I'm better off without them. I've come to realize that this at this point, I'm basically about to be 29. So like it's taken a long time for me to get to where I was. When I came out as trans, my biological father, he actually wrote a letter, and this was before I had come out as trans, to my school trying to get me mentally evaluated so he would not have to be responsible for me. And he outed me as trans. His whole side of the family, they are Roman Catholic. There's like Catholic as they come, and they're a different ethnic mixture than my mom's side. And I was always tormented. I faced a lot of anti-Semitism from them. And also being trans, that whole side of the family exiled me. I haven't spoken to them in like 15 years now. And a good amount of my mother's side of the family does not even acknowledge my existence at this point as well. My mother and I had a rocky relationship from the time I came out to the time I was like 22. She refused to call me by the right name and pronoun, to the point that when I first moved out, we got into a fight. We didn't talk for about like 3 months. But we're in a much better relationship now. So now I have my mom and I have like my close group of friends. And let me just say, TikTok has probably been one of the best things I ever decided to do. I originally downloaded TikTok during the quarantine just to watch funny videos. And then I started like actually getting like hundreds of likes on my videos. And I had a lot of trans people reaching out to me, where they were not knowing how to start off, or, I was a parent who thought maybe their child was trans and they didn't know what to do. And I realized that I could reach a lot of people. And I've developed a lot of really good friendships and relationships from TikTok, which is surprising to me because I didn't think anything of it when I first started. I just thought, I'm going to just watch videos and never post. But then here I am, like thousands of followers later and making a difference. And that's what I've always, wanted to do. And I'm glad that I get to do that. So I would say I got a lot of support from TikTok. Obviously, there's transphobes everywhere, so you're going to experience some type of hate or ignorance. But it was rocky for me. It took me a long time to get to be as mentally stable and strong as I am now. That's why, like, when people are like, oh, it's a choice, or you're weak, or this or that, it's like, walk in my shoes for an hour. Let me see if you could do it. Because it's like, I guarantee, like, a lot of people couldn't.
Well, honey, there's some people from my regular panel and all through my comment section. You family now, honey. They don't just say you family now. And just so you know, at this point, if somebody comes for you, Big Sis Taz is coming, and I'm a little scared.
Trust me. Someone left a lovely comment to me on. I posted a viral video. Everyone knows that video that was going around. I'm getting ripped tonight. R.I.P. that, right? So I have a hidden talent. I can do Mickey Mouse's voice like pretty spot on. I don't know if any of you seen it. But someone had made a... Say that again?
I loved it.
So I was like, wait a minute. I was like, let me do this because I felt like it would blow up and be funny as hell. But of course, I got like 2 ignorant comments on it. It was just like, all right, whatever. But someone made a comment like, oh, you're a major parent failure or something like that. Like, you're a major parenting fail. Your daddy must have disowned you. And I was just like, I was like, let's see, I have a career for 15 years. As like, I'm financially independent and stable. I was like, I don't have to be a shitty person to other people. I don't think I'm the person who failed their parents. I don't think parents fail in general having an LGBT child. I think they fail when they choose to disown the child or not support the child. So.
Yeah, because I don't understand how people go from being so excited, and I will never understand this trend of someone getting pregnant and they have to have an announcement party, a gender reveal, a baby shower. And then when the baby gets old enough to go, I don't feel right in the skin that I'm in. Now, all of a sudden, the fact that
it's
you
a problem.
Gender reveal party to celebrate genders and you didn't care, and you had a party displaying all the genders and having people guess. Now gender matters.
And not only that too, but also a lot of times you'll hear them say, "Oh, I don't care what the baby is as long as they're healthy." So why does it matter if they come out as trans if they're still healthy? It's like people just blow my mind. Like real talk. I sometimes I get to the point where I get overwhelmed with everything. And I was like, I need to take a step back because it's just for my own mental sanity. But I don't know. People. I notice like they always contradict themselves. I don't know about y'all, but it's contradiction after contradiction from them.
Very, very, very.
You know, like also like when they like to, you know, like, oh, I don't believe in science, but they're like, oh, science says there's only 2 genders. I'm like, gender is a social construction. Technically, it doesn't exist. It's what society tells you is masculine or feminine. And then, you know, they like to go with, oh, there's only 2 sexes. And I'm like, what about intersex people? Technically, trans people would fall within that spectrum if you really think about it, because our brain, they've scientifically proven that like a trans woman's brain is the same as a cis woman's brain. So in a sense, it was like being born both, if you will. You know, your brain is born one, your physicality is another. And you know, it like when they're like, oh, but that's super rare. So this is my question to them. So I mentioned in my hair's house, so I'll say to them, have you ever met a natural redhead? And a lot of times they'll say, yeah. I go, you do realize that natural red hair is 2% of the population, which is also the same amount as intersex, which means if you've met a redhead, you've met an intersex, which means it's more common than you think. So
that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The truth.
Can I steal that?
Go for it. Listen, y'all can use whatever you want. I don't care. Listen, we're all on the same side here. We're all trying to make a difference for people who are like us, people who don't have a voice. And it's like, that's why like I speak up as much as I can, because I know there's a lot of people that are afraid to. I'm not afraid to clap back. I'm not afraid to put someone in their place. And I know Taz isn't either, because I've seen her clap back and sometimes I'm like, damn. I was like, she's bringing them receipts and then some. I was like, shit.
Yeah,
one of my favorite.
I got some phone calls from some people that are like, why? They were like, your brain is a wonderland. How do you sit there and come up with what you come up with? I don't know. My brain has like,
it's just a natural gift.
But goth, a couple superheroes and some princesses just mixed all up into there, and it just comes out.
It's funny. I was talking to my mom tonight, and my mom goes to me, because I've showed her my TikTok videos. I've showed her some of your videos too, and I show her everything that I post. And she goes to me, this is my mom talking. She goes, you blow my mind with your intelligence. She's like, you're very well articulated. And I'm just like, kind of how you raised me to be. Like, granted, like my mom and I had our issues. She always raised me to be intelligent and do my research and be the best that I can be at whatever I'm going to do. And I feel like you're the same way. Like, you do your research, like every clapback or every video that you address, I feel like you're always on point about it. Okay. And you don't come off like crazy. You know what I mean? Like you're pretty calm and collected and respectful in these videos. And I try to be the same way. Just because I'm clapping back doesn't mean I have to be out of control, because then we're just as bad as they are.
Yeah, I just tell some really messed up jokes behind the scene. Talon will tell you.
Oh boy.
It's nothing disrespectful or anybody by, but
I have my jokes that I say to clapbacks to people too.
No, I'm talking about like when we're in one-on-one conversations.
One of my favorite things though about everybody who wants to come at us, I would say 80 to 85% of them can't even separate sex and gender in the first place. So they can't have any type of valid argument until they at least understand the distinction between those two. And my favorite clapbacks are science. There's actually 6 common sex variations. Just because you have a penis doesn't mean you're XY. Like, I believe it is Klinefelter syndrome. Don't quote me on it.
Klinefelter's is just not to interrupt you, but Klinefelter's is when you have XXY. So you have an extra X chromosome.
Yep, it's one of those 6 sex variations where in the beginning,
or like Turner syndrome. Turner syndrome is another one. There's another one where, ironically, I saw it on House. But I looked it up, and it genuinely is a real thing. So there was a model who, to naked eye, looked like a female, and it turns out she had undescended testes instead of ovaries. And it's like a one in like every like 500,000 or some type of case, something like that, where one person will be genetically one, but they will go through the puberty and the sex characteristics of the opposite. But there's so many variations, as you were saying, so you can continue.
Yeah, but like Klinefelter's is the one that I like to use, and I believe it's that one where child is born looking absolutely physically male, like everything you would stereotypically want to see. It isn't until they start to go into puberty where those secondary sex characteristics start to kick in, and they kick in opposite. So you have absolutely zero idea physically anything like that until that child starts to go through puberty. So the fact that people always just rely on basic external genitalia to determine who and what you are is so frustrating to me.
And I want to one thing, tired of hearing this argument put forth. Stop with the pink and blue are assigned to different things. For those watching, please do your history, do your research, because it wasn't until the 80s. I am 40.
Pink used to be for boys and blue used to be for girls.
That you all remember Geranimals? They put together a marketing campaign, just like Diamond wasn't a girl's best friend until a jeweler decided to make it a marketing campaign. And as babies, for the longest time, all of us were put into dresses.
Yep.
Well, until our parents decided they had some fresh hand-me-downs. It was just in the 80s. You could get fresh clothes for each child, because before that, all of us were being put in our great aunts, our parents' old clothes and everything else. And nobody was like, that's a boy thing, that's a girl thing. You're going to mess them up. And if somebody else says that there is an agenda.
No, I love have any of you seen that video?
None of us have conversion camps. The only people who have conversion camps are the ones that are hiding the fact that they were born in the wrong body, or that and Pastor John, who doesn't want to admit that he's attracted to Deacon Stephen. That's my 2 cents.
See, just to touch up on something else too, with sex and everything, the way that you mentioned there's like 6 main sexes, right? Like the most common ones. There's even more variations than that. Mm-hmm. But what people also fail to realize is that everybody starts off as female in utero. Mm-hmm. So you basically start off with, think of like the hood of a punani and the head of a penis, right? Can I say that on here?
It's 18 and over, honey. Let it fly.
Okay. So let's check in. And basically, I believe it's 6 or 7 weeks into gestation when the sex chromosomes start to kick into play, where the head will then come out to form the shaft in the head, and the hood will drop to create the testes, or the head will then start to go in to create the clitoris, and then the labia, the majority, all the parts of the vagina. I don't know all of them, unfortunately. Never been into vaginas. I respect them. I think they're beautiful. I think the power behind them is amazing. Like when someone says grow a pair of balls, I'm like, no, grow a pussy, because I could take a pounding. Like thanks. Like men get flicked in the balls and fall to the floor. Like let me see you push out a watermelon out your butthole, and then we could talk.
I always told my husband to peanut M&M out of his penis.
Yes. Yes. So.
Sorry.
But it's like seriously though, like it's just, but again, like people are so like, they're so uneducated, and they're not willing to say, like, if they took 5 minutes just to actually educate themselves, imagine how much less ignorance there would be in this world. And that can apply for anything, whether it's racism, sexism, massage, anything. Education is the key. I mean, they've already said that the majority of people who supported Trump are uneducated. blanquitos, if you will. That's what they said the majority is. Like, no offense, to that. But it's just like, come on now. Like, it takes 5 minutes to just sit down and just read an article about something, or like who here also feels like people use phony science to justify transphobia? Yeah. Okay.
Unanimous vote there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's amazing what just that little bit of education can do if someone took the time. Like, I always was the type of person that said, communication, but it's really comprehension. You can communicate with someone all you want, but if they can't comprehend what you're putting down in front of them, they're never going to understand.
Yeah.
That part right there. What is the biggest misconception people have had regarding you individually as a trans individual?
Someone else talk. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
I think, and I mean, this might not be a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but this is something I noticed, that once I came out as trans, people started asking me and people started asking my husband, so are you two still going to be together? How is this going to work? Are you going to see other people? Are you this, that, the other? First of all, it's none of your damn business. But second of all, like, God, I forgot where I was going with this because I'm so frustrated with some of these questions. But
I have a cousin that was in a similar situation to you, so I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, just those assumptions that all of a sudden everything around you has to just phenomenally change. And that's not the case. We're still happily married. We're not all of a sudden needing to have outside partners. Like all of these ridiculous things that people started asking us that you would never ask a cis person ever.
I think it just comes down to that at the end of the day, if you truly love the person, it shouldn't matter.
Yep.
That part.
It shouldn't matter if they're trans, cis, bi, whatever. If you truly love the person and accept them for who they are, you'll be with them regardless because you fell in love with them as a person, not a sex organ.
That's true, because technically, I'm still on my first date. And 3.5 years later, we're still...
I feel you.
He never took me home after the first day.
I'm single.
I love it.
I'm so over people. Like, I've put so much effort in trying to like be with people and just I don't have the patience for it anymore. Just don't. But I would say for me, my biggest misconception is I think a lot of people think that because I'm a trans woman that I'm just gonna be like this weak little like, like this little like sissy, if you will, and it's just like, nah, like I'll straight up knock your ass out. Like I'm built like a linebacker, and I'll like you're gonna go down.
Don't forget she's from New York.
Not only that too, but it's like also I think because again people think that like I'm gonna be weak. It's like most people don't know I was a black belt in Taekwondo and karate, and I also was trained with weapons. So I know how to use knives, I know how to use swords, I know how to use guns. And it's like, again, like I think people make these assumptions that as in general, like for a trans person that you still have to fit into this mold. And it's like, no, like you can do whatever you want. Like you could be a masculine trans woman, you could be a feminine trans woman, you could be a non-binary trans woman. Like, what's her name? Rose. I don't know if any of you've seen her, but she's non-binary and trans. Yeah, Rosalind Montoya. There you go.
Yeah.
She's non-binary and trans, and it's like she does her own thing. It's like, and I think it's great. Like, why not? Why do you have to fit a stereotype of what a woman's supposed to be or what a man's supposed to be? Be yourself. Do what you like. If you like video games, play video games. If you like fashion, go do fashion. Like, you like to fight or do that type of thing, do it.
Yeah, just don't expect fashion from me. I'm strictly t-shirts. The biggest misconception, Talon.
I think for me, it was that coming out as trans and then transitioning was going to change everything about me, was going to change my essence of who I am. When really, it changed my name, my pronouns. It didn't even fucking change my wardrobe. These are the same clothes. Like, same shit. Like, that didn't change.
I agree with you on that too.
But yeah, they thought that like I was going to completely change and then we're going to have to meet some new person. And it's like, no, I'm still the same person. I use new name, new pronouns. My voice is deeper, like, but I'm still the same person. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions is that we turn into completely different people and you won't be able to, like, who are we now? It's like, no, We're the same person. Like
we're the same person. We're just being our true self.
Mhm.
That's all it is. Like with what you're saying, I feel like people think that like it's like a persona. And it's like, no, like I'm the same person I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. It's just now I'm just more accurately being myself.
Yeah, I think for me, all it changed was I became more myself, so I was able to take off the mask, put it down, and be like, okay, this is me, guys. Like, true, I'm not like faking a smile anymore, you know, those sorts of things. But
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I felt like it was like you kind of could just like breathe, like you could exhale. Like I felt like I was holding my breath, and then actually transitioning and coming out, it was like I got to just exhale and breathe and just actually live.
Yeah.
I felt like before it's like you're always holding on to like you have to protect the secret. You know, no one can know. And then once you're finally out, it's like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. Like I'm just me. Like I'm more comfortably myself now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think your biggest hurdle has been? Not with society, but within yourself.
I think for me, it was ultimately just accepting it. I had been having these doubts since I was somewhere in high school. I don't remember when exactly they started, but having these doubts of like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. You know, okay, maybe if I do this, that'll make me feel okay. Maybe if I do this, that'll make me feel okay. And I think for me, that was my biggest hurdle of finally sitting down, looking at myself in the mirror and being like, no, you are trans. You've been trying to talk yourself out of it for at least 10 years. Like breathe, accept it, and figure out what to do next. I think that was my biggest hurdle, was just actually accepting it and being okay with it and realizing that it's not something that's wrong with me. It's that this is just who you are.
David?
See, for me, I'm the opposite. Like, I've known that I was trans probably, I've known, I would say, not even trans, I would say I knew I was female since I was very, very young. So for me, it wasn't a question of accepting it. I was always comfortable with who I was, and I was kind of always myself in general. But I think my biggest hurdle with being trans is also finding that balance of loving myself and also being able to love another person. I feel like a lot of times, like I've been fetishized as a trans woman, where like, you know, guys are quote unquote like the tranny chasers. If you know, I hate that word, but that's really what they're called. And for me, like my biggest hurdle is opening up to someone because like I've been hurt so much in my life by people. So opening up to someone, letting them get to experience the raw me. You know, like not the David that has 10 million walls up, but the David that can just laugh like a little kid again. You know what I like that? I would say that's my biggest hurdle. Like the only person I ever felt like that with was my ex. I've done a few videos in the past with him. If you've seen me do videos with a guy, that's him. Mm-hmm. He was like the one person that I felt like I could just let everything go down, where I trusted him with everything. And we're still great friends. Like I love him to death. You know, we broke up almost 3 years ago. But it's meeting that person that I feel like I can connect to. I'd say that's the biggest hurdle. I feel like I'm just fetishized, or I'm just, you know, a fantasy for someone, or that type of thing. And that gets really overwhelming because it's like, I just want to be loved as myself as a woman. Like that's really it.
Completely understandable. Now, one thing, because I decided to go down the rabbit hole of comments. I don't know why I did this to myself. But
oh boy.
Did notice that a lot of people don't understand the difference between drag and the trans community. Would you like to explain that to them? Because I just saw it in a lot of comments and I was just like, dear God.
Do you want to explain or should I explain?
Go ahead.
For it.
So drag queens to me is someone who is dressing up for the performance of it. They're oftentimes a gay man. They could even be a straight man, or there's drag kings, you know, gay women, or, you know, even cis women too, who dress up. It's more for the performance of it. But at the end of the day, they don't have that as an identity. They're not, oh, I'm a man or oh, I'm a woman. It's just I like to dress up for that for the act of the performance. Whereas like being trans is it's our self sense of being. If that makes sense. Like it's like I know I'm a woman. That's just it. Like there's not like I don't walk around in sequins and drag makeup and drag queen hair and stuff like that. Most trans people just want to fit in and be like everybody else. Like we don't want to stand out from the crowd, if that makes sense. We just want to live a normal life like everybody else. And I use the word normal like very loosely because what is normal? But you know what I mean? Like whereas like drag, I feel like they're more for the performance. They're more for like the art of it. And don't get me wrong, I think drag is an amazing art form. But what annoys me with the drag community is that a lot of times, like you said, people get confused between being a drag queen and trans. So then they associate a trans person as just dressing up when that's not the case. It's like I take my bra off, I still have boobs. I wear a wig as a protective style, but I still have long hair that's the same length as this. I live every day as a woman. I've gone through, my ID, my birth certificate, everything medically and legally. I'm recognized as female. Drag queens don't go to that extent. So I feel like a lot of times they give like that misconception that being trans is just, oh, you're just dressing up. No, I'm not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about having representation within the Biden administration?
I feel like it's a lot better than it was under Trump. That's for sure. And to be recognized by him in various speeches and stuff feels good to be seen. Now, do we still want more? Yes. Do we still want all of these things to happen where we're not worrying about what bill is going to be passed, how this is going to, you were talking earlier about, if it's going to affect my medical care, we want all of those things, but to at least have somebody in office speaking positively is a baby step in the right direction.
I agree. I think there's a lot that still needs to be addressed, but I definitely think it's better than it was under Trump's administration. I mean, for example, I'm sure you've all heard of, oh my God, the Human Rights Campaign, right? So they had put together a list of unprecedented things that Trump has done that are anti-LGBT. And I did a story time a long time ago about this, but I had a coworker who I found out she was a Trump supporter. I've known her for like 15 years, which that kind of like upset me. And when we reopened, we were having a conversation where she said to me, oh, I don't think Trump has done anything anti-LGBT. I was like, really? And I brought out this list, and don't quote me on it, but I think there's like 33 or 35, something like that, things that he's done that's very anti-LGBT. And she had the audacity to say to me, well, I sympathize with what you go through, but I think there's bigger issues in the country. I was like, you think human rights is not a big issue?
Dios míos. Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, wait, you think human rights is not a big issue? Like, I'm not saying trans rights are the only human right issue that needs to be addressed. Like, there needs to be addressed for anti-Muslim, anti-Black, LGBT, anti-Latino, anti-misogynist, like everything. Human rights is human rights. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, white, Black, Muslim, Jew, whatever. It doesn't matter what you are. The point is there's so many things going on with human rights right now where it's like, how could you say that? And the kicker, drum roll, please, she's an immigrant from Ukraine.
Well, that kind of explains it.
Yeah. So I was just like, come on now. Like, how do you say that to me? And like a few of my other coworkers didn't understand. I haven't spoken to her since like probably September or August, something like that. And a few of my other coworkers have said to me, like, are you going to talk to her? I said, no. I said, this isn't a matter of, we could agree to disagree on pizza toppings. We can't agree to disagree if I deserve to have basic human rights.
Yeah.
So I feel like getting to be a part of Biden's administration now, where I actually feel there's representation. Like when he made that speech that trans people that were visible and that, he's gonna. I can't tell you how many people sent me that, and they were just like, "Oh my God, like you must be feeling like relief." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do you know how scary it was under Trump's administration that all these things?" Like I was like, "Thank God!" Like I went through all of like the legal stuff because I was like, what if he had passed something that you couldn't get that done? So the fact that Biden's, like I said, there's still a lot of things that Biden needs to do. There's a lot of things he needs to fix from Trump's administration, but so far I think he's doing good. I feel more represented.
That's good. Because I want to ask you all one question, and then the last 15 minutes, I'm going to just turn over to you all for your final thoughts and anything you want to share. But what I did not tell you all when I invited you on is that I am making this a recurring segment. The next segment will be in a month. And I'm asking people if they're comfortable to bring a member from their support team on so they can, kind of tell how they're able to support and what they go through. Because in my marriage, I know what I go through with my husband, and telling what happened a couple weeks ago where I kind of had to come out a little quicker than we were ready, but it's all good. So if you all would like to be involved with that, please let me know. But we will be going
totally down
about different facets, different things that come about. And I am not joking about that whole anniversary party either.
Let's do it.
No, we got to do it. If anything, we should all take a shot, like on like the next episode, whatever it is. Like, let's take a shot. Let's do something. Like this is, listen, a year on hormones, right? You said it's a year.
Uh-huh.
That's a big thing. People don't realize how being on hormones for a year is such a difference.
Yeah.
People think a year is such a small amount of time, but a lot can change in a year, especially when you're trans.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's awesome that you're only just a year into it. And as someone who's in this for 6 times more than that, let me just tell you, there's more to come, and it's just gonna get better.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts, Talon? Anything you want to share to the people?
I would like to specifically, I'll say, because this is recorded, so let's do it. Speak to trans men, fellow trans men. I have seen a different creator, and for the life of me, I can't remember her name right now. She has green hair. That's what I remember about her. And she is getting a lot of hate from trans men. And she's a trans woman. And I want to speak to trans men that by transitioning, we gain privilege. Whether you want it or not, you don't really get a say in it. I know that I definitely have, and we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that, and we need to stand with and back up our trans sisters. We can't just sit there and be like, okay, I've transitioned, I got the privilege, I'm out. We can't do that. That's, in my book, that's not okay. That's 100% not okay. And what I have seen happening on her page, and I've seen at various other places, of trans men being like, well, yeah, we get hate too. And for me, at least from my experience, I have seen the hate that I see trans women getting. If we're speaking specifically on TikTok, I've seen it. I've been in trans women's lives, and they are getting disgusting things, from fetishizing to death threats to telling them to go unalive themselves. And trans men aren't getting that at the, I just got really out of focus. Trans men aren't getting that at the same level. And I follow the HRC, which I probably shouldn't follow them on Facebook, because all the time, every time a new trans person is killed violently, they do basically a memorial for them, just like this trans person. And what you see trans women. And so to see this coming from our community against trans women, it can't be happening. And so that's one of the things I wanted to say is, trans men, you gotta fucking do better.
And if you all see any trans women being bullied, please tag me or please invite them once a month.
Tag
and
me too.
At least we can bring them on here and show them some love and get some love from us, the comment section. I know it's just a little thing, but sometimes the little things can keep you going.
I can fix this.
And David, your final thoughts?
I have a few, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So who here remembers that whole situation?
I'm very honey, dear, sweetie. I hope that doesn't offend you. I forgot to ask
No.
at the beginning. Okay.
So who remembers the situation with Keto Rose, where she made about trans women should be honest and that type of thing? I came across, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is just because it kind of relates to what you just said, where he was talking about trans men towards trans women. It was a gay man who had made, he had stitched a video from her or whatever, and was just like, oh, if my cootie cat got fixed, then I'm a woman, and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is like, yes, trans women are women, but I still think we should be open and honest. That's just my opinion. I've always been open and honest, not because of anyone else, but because for my own safety. But also, I think something that a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of transphobia in the LGBT community. I've gotten so much hate from gay women, from gay men. I've had gay men in the past say to me, oh, you're not a woman, you just don't want to admit you're gay. It's like, no, like that's not the case at all. But nice try, it takes several seats. And, like I had made a comment on his video, and I actually stitched his video and made a response where, I brought up what I just said. And it was like, at the end of the day, like, you don't really have space to talk about it either as a gay man. Let trans people come forward. And then I started noticing on my timeline that there was a lot of trans women who was posting and bragging about that they weren't telling men that they were trans. And all I could think about is like what you just said with the Human Rights Campaign, where every time a trans person is, killed, and it's predominantly trans women of color, that I just think, oh my God, like what if that trans woman gets killed? Like, and most people don't, I think there's been like 20 or 21 trans people that's been murdered in 2021.
I think it's 20.
I think it's like 20 or 21, something like that. But I'm like, people don't realize like how that's a lot considering we're only basically 4.5 months into the year. And I think a lot of times like people kind of forget that there's so much hate. Like the way I look at it is, how could we expect a cis straight person to respect us if we in the LGBT community can't respect each other either? Because to me, the way I look at it is they're going to say, well, gay men don't respect trans women, and trans women don't respect bisexual men, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like an endless cycle. And then it gets to a point where it's like, how could we expect them to respect us if we can't respect each other? And we're supposed to be a community.
I agree.
So I think also, like, if you see another member of the LGBT, Q community going after a trans person or after each other in general, speak up on it, because I think at the end of the day, we have a lot to learn from each other. We all have different experiences. It's a different experience for being a gay woman than it is being a gay man. Same as being a trans woman or a trans man or a bisexual man, bisexual woman, whatever the case may be. We all have different experiences, and I think we could all learn from each other how to make not only it safer for everyone around us and ourselves, but also how to be a better community. I think, yeah.
But once again, thank you both for joining us. I know Chris had to leave early. He already explained that to me earlier. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being my friends. And thank you for having the courage to speak, because there were a lot of other people that I asked that just, they didn't want to put their face to it, even though they are out on smaller
platforms.
But and since they agreed, we will see you all in exactly 4 weeks, and we're gonna keep talking.
Sounds good.
So
I'm so down for it.
Each one teach one, each one reach one. Love you all, and thanks again. Till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.